There's some breaking news out of Europe with one country that wants to put to a vote the idea of taxing citizens no matter where they live. U.S.-style citizenship-based taxation. There's a sinister twist in this one. We're going to share the article and what you should know. And we told you a couple months ago that in France, one of the candidates for high office said, let's have U.S.-style citizenship-based taxation. No more leaving France, keeping the passport, and not paying. Citizens must pay. Now, that candidate did not win. But what have I told you for years? When the ideas get out into the ecosystem, someone else will eventually pick up and run with them. And that is the case in France. We're going to share the article from EMI. I'm here in Madrid. We're filming Live Like a King. Hope you'll check out our Live Like a King in Kuala Lumpur. We've got a lot more that we're filming coming up, but I wanted to take a moment to share this with you. French Finance Committee adopts bill aiming to introduce citizenship-based taxation. Now, we've told you for years the United States does this. If you're a U.S. passport holder, you are going to be under the radar of the IRS no matter where you move. You have to fill out tax returns. You may have to pay something. We help Americans and many other nationalities legally reduce their taxes. But it is harder for Americans. There is more to do. France wants to do the same. And what you're going to see in this article is a number of things I've been telling you for years. It's all coming home to roost. France's Finance Committee has adopted an amendment to establish a quote-unquote targeted universal tax requiring French citizens living in countries with lower tax rates to continue paying taxes to France. So we're going to get into the details here in a moment. But basically what this is speaking to is what I've told you for years. They may look at some sort of backdoor tax. The United States is pretty bold. We tax you no matter where you live. Yes, there's exclusions. Yes, there's exemptions. If you're an entrepreneur, you can ring fence a lot of your income and reduce your tax rate, usually to the single digits. But I've told you, other countries will bring in a tax on citizens through the back door. And just to be clear what that means if you hold a French passport, even if you don't live there, you may be taxed. We'll talk about that. The proposed system would require French nationals who lived in France for at least 3 years within the last decade before relocating to pay taxes equivalent to their hypothetical French tax burden. So there's the beginning of the sinister twist. If you have lived there for 3 out of the last 10 years, they're going to keep you in that tax debt. Kind of what California was talking about. Hey, if you lived here for any part of the last decade, we're going to go after you, and we're going to basically say, hey, it's as if you never left. So France is saying, if you lived here for 3 of the last 10 years, if you have French citizenship by descent, if you grew up in France and moved away a long time ago, perhaps you will be exempt. But if you've lived in France for 3 of the last 10 years, they want to rope you in and make you pay taxes equivalent to your hypothetical French tax burden. To prevent double taxation, how kind of them. The amendment outlines a tax credit mechanism for French citizens living abroad. Here's the second part of the sinister twist, and what I've been telling you for years somebody would do this. Under this framework, they must pay taxes equivalent to what they owe in France, but they will receive a credit matching any taxes already paid in their country of residence. That's standard. But unlike the American model of citizenship-based taxation, which affects all U.S. citizens globally, the French proposal targets only those living in countries with tax rates at least 50% lower than France's. For years now, we saw more headlines this summer. A number of French citizens moving to Belgium for lower taxes. Imagine, I know Belgium has a few things going for it, but imagine in general moving to Belgium for lower taxes. Many people over the years, including recently from France, have moved across the border to French-speaking Belgium to lower their taxes. We'll talk about that in a second. Under this proposal, you may be able to get away with doing that, and they leave you alone. But to me, one of the things people say is, well, I don't want to leave my family. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. If you're going to make a move, what do we always say? If you're going to move, you might as well move. If you're going to move to lower your taxes, you might as well move to somewhere where you can lower them dramatically. If you're going to upend your life, if you're going to put the kids in different schools, yes, you want the good lifestyle. We film Live Like a King to show you can have a good lifestyle in a lot of places. Yes, you can have a good lifestyle, but why not lower, why do you want to lower your taxes just a little bit? It's like people in the U.S. I'm moving from California to Arizona. Okay, you're going to save a few percentage points, but you're going from, net, 50% tax to 44% tax. Is that worth all that effort? Same thing. Is it worth it to move from France, somewhere else in Europe that has, relatively high taxes for most people? Well, that's what France is hoping you'll do, because they no longer believe that as their citizen, you're entitled to being part of the community. You are now, as Doug Casey says, you are now a milk cow. You are a dairy cow to be milked. And so if you don't go where they want you to go, well, they're going to tax you as if you never left France. So that's the sinister twist. Again, I told you, and I said this specifically about Europe in the last year or two. They might say, hey, if you move somewhere we like, if it's on the nice list, okay, go and save your 10%, go and save your 20%. By the way, who controls 50% of what? They can raise their taxes as high as they want. Remember the 75% tax rate was not under Hollande? I mean, 50% of any number they choose. There's people in the United States saying bring back 91%, top tax rates that existed under Eisenhower. Okay, if you pay 50% of 91%, they get to choose what you pay. The scope extends beyond income tax to include inheritance tax, capital gains, and dividends. They're roping it all in. This is a repeat of a 2019 fact-finding mission from Finance Committee Chairman Eric Coquerel and Jean-Paul Mattei, where they talked about applying a sort of citizenship-based tax to those who move to low-tax jurisdictions. I don't remember if we read that report particularly, but I've been telling you for 4 or 5 years that we read these think tank reports and these little things that we come out through the tax journals we read, and that's where I've gotten this idea. I'm not just making it up. It's not just, it's coming to me. I read stuff that the average person doesn't see, that's not in the newspaper, because we get these arcane, tax journals and newsletters and all the stuff we subscribe to around here for our research work, and we see the kind of stuff that they're talking about behind closed doors. And I figure, hey, how many years is that before that kind of thing becomes a reality? So in France, it wasn't Lucie Castet, who was the person running for, I believe, was president earlier this summer. She did not get in. But she wasn't the first one in France to propose this. And so I've been telling you for years, other countries, Canada, perhaps Australia, European Union countries, are at least going to make it harder for you to get out. And I've said there's going to be a movement towards some sort of backdoor citizenship-based taxation. So in the case of France, it will be, if you move to somewhere we like, great. We will perhaps leave you alone, at least until we jack up our taxes so high that that other place looks like a tax haven in comparison. The National Rally Party supports the measure, with their Member of Parliament, Jean-Philippe Tanguay, linking it to citizenship rights and duties. Who said that first? As Western countries get increasingly more desperate, as they realize they're broke, as they lose their share at the top of the world economy food chain, because they've been there just kind of, we're here in Spain, and Madrid has been very nice. But I've said for years, how is Spain the 10th largest economy in the world? Kind of by default. As the Indonesias and the countries like that pick up steam, the Brazils, a place like Spain, a place like France, it's not going to be at the top of the food chain anymore. You may not realize that sitting in Europe or sitting in North America that your country has increasing competition. I realize it traveling all around the world. And so what I tie that to is this increasing push among politicians in these increasingly broke Western countries of saying, it used to be, oh, you're French, you're one of us. Please, you're living in Dubai, come to the embassy, we'll have snacks for you once a month. There are countries that do that. They're shifting from that. Oh, you're one. Thank goodness you're one of us. So we don't care if you're paying 0% tax as long as you don't, drive on the roads and bridges. Now it's, oh, you carry our passport. Oh yeah, you're one of us. Oh, well, to be one of us, you have to pay. You don't get to move somewhere else. And by the way, we don't care if you move somewhere else because you just happen to like it better. We don't care why you move, because what I've seen personally, having given up U.S. citizenship, sure. Not having to deal with the IRS, that's always a nice thing. Was that the reason I did it? No, not really. And so how many people believe that? I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't. And I'm sure people running for office, talking to what this article mentions, the average middle-class worker, do you think they take very kindly to my choice to leave? No, I'm a political target, and I realize that. And so you can be a political target in your country. Oh, yeah, he's living for Dubai. And so we're seeing this serious shift from you're one of us to be one of us if you pay. I've predicted. Now, what have I said? If you hold a Western passport, you need to have a second passport. Good news is if you're French, you can have a second passport. We've had a few French citizen clients over the years who were entitled to other European citizenships by descent. You can go to the Caribbean and get citizenship by investment in under a year by making a donation. You can go to other parts of the world and make real estate investments or other investments and get citizenship in under a year. Those programs are going up in price, and I would argue it's not entirely coincidental that the European Union pushes back on some of the Caribbean programs to add more requirements, add more steps, which has lengthened the process. Why? They don't want you leaving. They don't want you to pay $200,000 and have a get out of jail free card, that if they decide to tax you for the privilege of being born there, even if you don't want to live in their country a single day a year anymore, they don't want you to be able to leave. They don't like that you have options. It angers them. There's a lot of people in Paris working for think tanks who don't pay taxes at all that want you to pay a lot of taxes. Those are the ones that don't want you to have options. And so what do you do when someone doesn't want you to have options? Well, that's a pretty strong signal to me that you need to have options. Like when someone who wants to take something from you wants to stop you from having options, that's like, yeah, I think I need something. Now, again, I've been saying this for years. I'm ringing the alarm bell now. Who knows if this makes it through, but it's the second time in a matter of months we're talking to you about this. I don't think France will be the first or the last. I think we've talked about how Australia is kind of tiptoeing ever so slowly into this. If there's talk of this in Canada, there's increasing talk just from the average person that you see. How dare you carry our passport if you don't pay? That is not what people said even 10 years ago in the early days of Nomad Capitalist. It was, hey, if you don't want to live here, that's cool. People are more and more angry, and so you need a second passport. Why? Because if one day something like this goes through and you want to live somewhere else, the answer is, okay, well, you know what? If I have to pay millions of euros to a country I don't even live in, maybe not only for the money's sake, but because it's personally insulting, I don't want to be French, or I don't want to be whatever other country tries to do this. And how am I going to get out of that? Well, the process is longer than it was a year ago to get a second passport by investment. The process will probably get longer as more little bureaucratic burdens get added. Good idea to do it now. If you start today, if you go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply and you want to work with us, yeah, within a year, you can have a second passport in many cases. And so then you're prepared no matter what happens. What you don't want to do is wait for the law to go through and then be scrambling, as so many people over the years have done, where they come to us and, hey, we can save them money in the long run, but it's too late to take the big hit, to save the big hit, because they waited too long. So you want to get the second passport before you need the second passport. At a certain point, I just enjoy having passports at this point. I'm beyond the point of strategy for the most part. Although, hey, more options are more options. But if you're looking at your second passport, you got to have that one before you need it. I've spent a lot of money. I've invested. I've done a lot of stuff over the years to get citizenships because I wanted to have different options. I wanted to have different places I can call home. And there is a sentimental side to it as well. But first, you want to make sure you can protect yourself, protect your wealth. And as someone who's been through this, protect yourself from your own country turning on you and flipping what you thought was a cherished benefit into an entitled obligation on you. We'd be happy to help. nomadcapitalist.com/apply. We'll keep you updated, but the next update, it may be too late, and it may be, hey, you got to pay.